So good morning, everybody. My name is Amanda Waters. I'm the Director of Athletics at Mater Dei High School in Santa Ana, and I am here with Ira.
Ira Childress, Athletic Director, Gulliver Preparatory School in Miami, Florida.
So thank you all for joining us again. I can't believe how long actually we've been doing this now, Ira. So started March like 13th, was it 16th, 17th?
Yeah.
That's crazy, huh?
Come a long way since then. A lot of things have happened. A lot of things have transpired. Obviously, we're still in COVID, so that's always
Unfortunately,
tough. Yeah.
yes. You're still dressing snazzy. I'm still dressing in what I dress
Hey,
for now.
you got to be who you are. That's the key.
100%. All right. So do you want to dive right in? You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. So I know that a lot of you off-season workouts have started, rolling those out slowly. We're in our third week here at Mater Dei. Things have been going great for us. We haven't had any problems up to this point. We're 3 weeks in. Protocols seem to be working. Cleaning seems to be working. What's happening in Florida, Ira? How are you guys doing?
Yeah, as I mentioned last time, the Florida High School Athletic Association started on August 24th with fall sports. We haven't started yet here at Gulliver, but yesterday we did. We haven't started yet here at Gulliver, but yesterday we did announce to our families and I guess publicly that we will be starting sports on September 14th. That will be our first day of official fall practice. We'll have all sports going. But the one thing that will be different when we start on the 14th, we're going to do what we call semi-bubble for our football student athletes. So essentially, they will stay in remote learning. Everybody's coming back to school on September 8th, by the way, next week. Everybody will be back in person. So we're starting in-person school on the 8th, and then we're starting fall sports on the 14th. But our football program will be doing online. Everybody who's in there, they will remain online. And we're creating this, again, it's like a semi-bubble where they'll get a chance to compete in the sport they love, but they won't be in the general population of the campus while the season is going on. So we're trying to be as smart and as healthy as we can, but we're excited that the athletics are back here at Gulliver, and we put a bunch of protocols and things in place. I can share those with you, Amanda, but it's a lot of things in place to get the sports back and up and going. So, and we have a lot of sports here. So fall for us consists of football, cross country, bowling, swimming, both boys and girls, and I'm missing one right now, but yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of sports, in the fall for us that are important. Obviously, cheerleading as well. So yeah. So it's going to be a busy fall.
You know what's been great? I think it's, all the work that everybody's done and the stuff we've learned on here. I've utilized a lot of it just to get our kids back, which has been so great. Like our fall season doesn't start until December 14th, but we're doing off-season stuff, and then the state threw kind of a curveball again because we love curveballs the other day where we went off the watch list, and then all of a sudden we're supposed to be off on Tuesday. So we actually start back in classroom learning on a hybrid type system September 22nd. So and then we're going to take a week off of athletics, just to let everybody kind of get acclimated to being in class again. We're doing like a 25% of the population back. The following week, we'll bring athletics back again to kind of see how that will all meld itself. Lucky for us, we kind of have a north and a south type of our campus. So we always say south of Heisman is the athletic facility because we have a Heisman lane. And then north is classes. So we want to obviously make the teachers feel as comfortable as possible, as well as the student athletes and the parents. So that communication went out today to our families. And then we're offering, different types of meal options for athletes too, which is kind of a cool thing, I thought. So yeah, it's a lot of protocols, but we've been successful up to this point. I'm interested to hear if anybody else out there has started and kind of what things are, how it's working for them. Let's see. I see Chris.
Amanda, I could speak if you want me
Oh,
to.
sure. That'd be great. Yeah, for sure.
All right. My name is Anthony Fisher of Minneapolis Public Schools in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we began August 17th, of which we didn't have any issues the first 3 weeks, I believe it was. And then we had a student athlete test positive at one of my schools, of which the plan that we built, it was broad enough to, broad enough to basically speak to the entire school district. And we have 10 high schools in our school district, 19 middle schools. So it's broad enough to address the entire school district, but at the same time, there was flexibility built in where we could adjust or drill down to a specific sport should there be a breakout or we have to move. So let me paint a picture for you. We have what's called stages. We have 5 stages. And within those stages, it essentially addresses stage 1, virtual coaching. Stage 2 would be off-season practice only. Stage 3 would be in-season and off-season practice only. Stage 4 would be in-season competition. And then stage 5 would be return to normal. So essentially what happened at one of our schools is if there's 4 in-season sports, 3 of them were able to move to stage 4. And what happened with that outbreak or that positive test within our tennis program at one school, that school was shifted back to virtual and everyone within that program had to quarantine for 14 days. So that's where we are in Minneapolis, and hopefully we have no more positive cases reported.
So you've only had one in all of your schools so far?
There was indirect contact, which I believe it was a spouse of one of our coaches. So with that indirect contact, that didn't, our kids were considered secondary, of which our health services department allowed the pods to continue. But what went wrong with the tennis situation is that coach wasn't following our preparedness plan and they weren't instituting the pods. And so our health services shut that whole program down because you couldn't really drill it down to who that particular positive testing student athlete had contact with.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. How many schools do you have there?
There's 10, there's 7 large high schools that essentially have athletic programs. And then there's 3 other high schools where we do cooperative sponsorships here. So because they don't offer a full athletic program, they're able to attach to another high school that's close in proximity. So 10 high schools and then 19 middle schools.
Yeah, that's big. Tony, if you can follow up on that, what is your plan in case, just for example, if you get somebody that you start the season and you're playing and some student athlete gets COVID on one of the teams, will you automatically shut the whole team down? Will you try to obviously isolate the student athlete and then, do some contact tracing and see where that goes? I mean, how would you handle that in season?
So in season, essentially, once the student athlete notifies the coach, we have protocols set in place where the coach wouldn't announce it to parents or to the other student athletes. They would essentially let the district athletic office know. We then would get in contact with health services. Health services would then contact that coach or the affected student athlete. And at that point, it really boils down to the coach giving a detailed report on how they were social distancing within their practices. So if they in fact had pods and so forth, we'd be able to drill it down to what pod that student athlete was in, and then you would essentially shut down that particular pod. You wouldn't shut down the whole team. But like I mentioned with tennis, that coach was very transparent and honest about the fact that they were not practicing social distancing. And so at that point, our health services department made the decision to shut down tennis entirely. So to your point, in season, we would be shut down for 14 days. And right now, our state association is building protocols to basically give us guidance on how that would look if it happened in the middle of the season. Is it a forfeit? Are you going to reschedule those games? I believe that it was a 50-50 split amongst our lead athletic directors. So they separate out a certain amount of our ADs and talk about this prior to mentioning it to the whole state of Minnesota and all the athletic directors. But I believe it was a 50-50 split in terms of forfeit and or rescheduling. But I would prefer the forfeit just because, you know, at that point, who's looking to reschedule games considering the season is already condensed?
Right.
Right.
Cool. Thanks.
Wow. That's pretty awesome. I loved all that. That's good stuff. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Next we have, hey, Ira, to kind of go a little bit, we have an AD from Utah. I kind of wanted to get their thoughts also on how they're starting. I know they started actually playing. So last name is Sheets. If you are on here, if you could unmute yourself.
Yeah, that's Jamie. It's
Jamie
at Park City, Utah.
Okay, Jamie, welcome. Tell us how it's going. We're all so jealous. At least I know I am. So talk to me. Tell me how it's going.
Well, we're getting some of yours and Anthony's people from California.
I know. I know this.
So we're one of the very few states that didn't make any changes to the calendar, didn't make any changes to the schedules or game limits. I mean, we're under COVID protocols, but we started everything exactly as scheduled. So we're going into week 4 of football. Boys golf was the first. Boys golf is always the first in our state to start, which was the third full week of July. So we've been going full strength since then. It's been, you know, I do not envy the position that all of you are in. We've been very fortunate in this state in terms of our numbers. They have roller coasted a little bit here and there, but listening to some of what everybody's doing across the country in terms of management and where we're at right now, and we are in-person school right now. We've been in-person school since August 20th. We do have the option for kids to go remote, but otherwise that I think we're about 85% in person. So we're obviously all masks all the time, social distancing as much as possible, which is like herding cats with teenagers. We had a football game Friday night where I had some junior high kids at the game, and I don't know, I must have said stop touching each other 100 times because they're just teenagers. They're going to gravitate towards each other. But in terms of our protocols with their teams, the kids have taken to it very well. It's the adults that seem to have the most issues with some of the stuff. But our state's done a very good job just promoting. They have a Mask Up Utah campaign that they put together that we've all been using. And it's just reminding the parents at this point, at least from our standpoint, it's like, look, it's not about a political agenda. It's not about COVID anymore. It's about if your kid wants to have a season, then put the mask on. And it's pretty much that simple. You know, I was joking the other day with somebody, with a parent, and I said, well, if I asked you to wear your pants backwards so your kid could have a sports season, would you do it? And everybody's like, yeah, everybody would have their pants on backwards. And it's like, well, then put the mask on. It's no, you know, it's as simple as that. So we've had some schools. We've had one case pop up with an activity. It was actually a coach that exposed another coach. None of the kids were exposed, but just the way Anthony was just talking about, our protocols are very similar to what he's got down there, down south. And essentially what we do is we evaluate level of exposure. And so, you know, and we're all county based. So it's pretty much what our county health department has told us, which is very consistent with what our governor has put out. So if that person wasn't within 6 feet of somebody for more than 15 minutes, the level of exposure is considered pretty low. So just because somebody in a class or somebody on a team tests positive doesn't necessarily mean we're shutting down. The level of exposure is first determined by the health department, by us to see, and then by the health department. So as I said, we've had a couple cases, but nothing that has caused widespread shutdown. For school-wise, if we have 3 kids or more in a class or 15 active cases at a time in the school, we would go remote. We would shut down activities and athletics for that time. But there's another school in Utah, Pleasant Grove High School in Alpine School District. You may have seen it in the news. They just went totally remote a couple days ago because they had, the numbers keep getting thrown out there. I know they had 67 cases in that district, but it's a large district. The school, they wouldn't release how many were in the school. We've had a couple schools football wise that have missed games, and they're just considered no contests. They're not a forfeit. It's just the state association said no contest. If the team that is healthy, that can play, can find another opponent, they're more than welcome to do so. But I think that's happened to maybe 3 teams. One in week 1, Bingham High School, which was just on ESPN against Corner Canyon last week. They lost their first week game because of a few cases. I know there was another school week 2, and I think there was one just last week. There's a school that's in our same region that football and volleyball were exposed by one of their football coaches in class. And so their football and volleyball are quarantined, and we were supposed to play their volleyball tomorrow night, which we won't do. We just rescheduled the game for later in October. So it's just all mitigation strategies for us at this point, since we're going. And so far it's been good. People understand it, and it's just managing it at this point.
And you have fans back too, right?
Yeah. So
how is that? Like when they walk in, obviously you're telling them to wear a mask. Are you selling actual tickets, or is everything like a digital ticket? Just
yeah,
I know there's going to be a ton of questions, so I just
yeah,
kind of.
and I'll answer any of them. It depends on the location you're going. Some schools on the Wasatch Front, from essentially Ogden to Salt Lake down to Provo, they've limited to 25% capacity. We've been close to that, a little bit above that. There are some schools that haven't limited capacity at all, and because they have the availability in their stadiums to spread out. So they've just said, we are trying to get people to spread out. Pretty much everybody here has gone to online ticketing, whether it's GoFan, Hometown, any of the others. And truthfully, it's made a big difference. We're never going back to cash after COVID. I can tell you that. After using the online thing, it's so nice. But we've got signage up everywhere that says, mask required in this facility, please social distance. They don't come into the event unless their mask is up and on, so they won't come in. But do you have like markings on the bleachers, like where they sit, or you just say you tell them and hope? We haven't had to do that because of the nature of our school and the size and the capacity. We haven't gone that far. There are some schools that we have played that have. I mean, we've marked sections to say, if you buy a ticket in this section, we expect you to be in this section. There have been schools that have marked sections and marked seats and said, you're buying this particular seat, we expect you to essentially be in that spot. We didn't go that far. And I know they're still just selling just general admission. Our health department it's kind of weird, depending on where you're at. Our health department wasn't as concerned about tracing every person in the stands. It was more about our teams and our school personnel that are there, because that's what we really have control over. But we have everybody, I think, in our state now has the capacity to trace everybody that comes in with a ticket. That was the whole point. That was the expectation of all of us. And we use Hometown, and it's been great. I mean, we used GoFan a couple years ago, and that was good too. But the stuff that Hometown has that we've used has been fantastic in terms of tracing. I know exactly everybody who's in there that's bought a ticket.
Yeah, that's great. I know that they've talked about the type of ticketing out here as well. We've met with a few people in regards to that. Ira, any questions from you?
No, this is all good stuff. Let's continue to go around the country.
Jamie, I appreciate you sharing, Jamie. And if there's more questions, we'll kind of circle back to you. I know a lot of people are interested, like, hey, they actually started football. So the fact that you're still going in week 4 is a great thing. I know I'm extremely jealous. So, no, so keep it going and good work out there. Good job on the protocols and stuff. Obviously, you guys are doing well. All right. Ira, AD meetings, collaborations, and leagues. So I'm sure now school's starting for almost everybody that you're having your AD meetings and your league meetings. and collaborating with some other ADs, hopefully in your leagues as well as in your states. Some people have reached out to me about different things that they're doing now. Ira, what have you heard about AD meetings and that type of thing? I know for us, our league meetings have been weekly, just to kind of keep up on the protocols and what we're doing. So kind of everybody in our league we're similarly doing the same things, as well as, you know, we have 17 sports in the spring now. So figuring out where do we play? You know, do we play league games off our campuses and find a neutral site? So what's happening in Florida with yours?
Yeah, we're having league meetings. The one thing we found though, being independent schools, everybody needs are a little bit different. Everybody has a little bit different, and from a sports standpoint, a little bit different philosophy of when they're going to start, why they're going to start, what's driving the bus, at their school, and how do how you work through all that. So we collaborate, we talk, but everybody doesn't necessarily do the same thing. When it comes to being in the league, and that's okay. But I think the biggest thing is being on the same page, because the one thing I can tell you going into this now, now that we're in it and we're actually about to start playing games and stuff, the scheduling piece is pretty tricky, because games could be canceled anytime. Games that you thought you had, some people aren't back in school and they aren't playing, and so you don't know what the state series is going to look like. So there's a lot of things scheduling. You just got to kind of say, okay, this is going to be tough scheduling wise, and kind of live with it. But that piece of it is tough.
Well, yeah, and here we're determining, we still don't know for sure, like, are they allowing buses? Where can we go? We are doing travel, limited, but our admin has to approve it, and there has to be specific plans on how we're doing what. And again, I think like everybody else, this is not going away anytime soon. So we really have to be fluid with how that works. Some of the schools we're supposed to play, like Jamie already mentioned, they may not be able to play. It may just be a cancellation or a forfeit, and then we just move on to the next game. So it's definitely going to be an interesting type year. But I do think it's very important to make sure that your leagues and you guys are collaborating with things, so that it kind of helps with a little bit of that frustration. Because I know it is frustrating. We do all the work to make sure that the Tetris of the schedules work, and then something throws a wrench in it. So it definitely makes it challenging. Ira, second up is admin involvement. I think it's extremely important, and you and I have talked about this many times, that as an AD at your schools or districts, that you have input with administrative meetings and they see the work that you guys have all done. I know that it's different in every place. I know California, a lot of times, I know for ADs, we're not admin. But they have included me in admin at Mater Dei, which has been great. Carlsbad, I was an admin. I was considered admin a lot of the time as well. So I could actually be in on those important conversations. How important is it, Ira, for us to be involved in those conversations? And what are the biggest things that you think we could bring to those meetings?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I'm fortunate here to sit on our leadership team. So I'm in all the meetings, and we are administration here. So when people would say to me, "Hey, you need to go talk to your administration," early on in these meetings, I was like, "No, actually, I am a part of that." I think we have to really be at the table, and if you're not in administration, I think you need to be fighting to be there. And it's not to be there to say, "Hey, look, I'm in administration." It's to be there because decisions are being made that's going to affect your department. And if you're not in on those decisions, or not being consulted, or not being having a conversation with, that's tough. And it's hard to be proactive. And some things you can cut off right away. And anything that affects athletics, or physical education, the two areas that I oversee, they come to me right away and say, "Hey, listen." Even if it's not a meeting or whatever, it may be an email or phone call, say, "Hey, what are your thoughts on this?" or how you think that's going to affect. And I think that's what we need to be looking for in these roles. I think that's very important, because it's not, and the reason why it's important is because it could affect your student athletes, could affect your students, could affect your coaches, it could affect the departments as a whole. And if you're hired to make sure these departments are are running well. So I think being in touch with your admin, if you're not admin, and at least having a seat at the table is something that we need to really focus on and look to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you. And I think sometimes that's a hard discussion, right? Like especially for new ADs, how do they approach that subject with their administrators? And I would say whoever you have the biggest connection with, try to have conversation and just be like, look, it's not because it's an ego thing. It's just, I want to make sure that I can have input and that I can hear input to make sure that our student athletes are having that best possible experience and we're not missing anything. And I think that's the biggest key is it's not because I need to know, but it is because I need to know.
Yeah, I
Without,
mean,
yeah.
and a great, Steve Jobs said it best. You don't hire great people and tell them what to do. You hire great people so they can tell you what to do, and that's what upper administration should be kind of following that mantra. I mean, you're brought in to be an expert in the area of athletics and for some people physical education. So that's what you need to be focused on and working in, and you can obviously help your institution doing that.
Oh, for sure. For sure. All right. The next piece, student athlete connections and preparing for return. So this morning, obviously I said Friday, they threw us a curveball with the state. We were expected to be back doing a hybrid in-person learning starting September 8th. They've now pushed Orange County at least out till at least September 22nd. So that's kind of our return to the day we come back. But in order to prepare, it's sending a letter out to the parents explaining the protocols that we're going to use, and we have entry and exit points and where we're taking temperatures, and all of those protocols that we've been working on all summer are now kind of coming to fruition because it's time to use them, right? So how do we connect with those student athletes? Like we did Jessica Perry, one of my associate ADs, did a photo shoot with some of the athletes, right? She brought 2 people on at a time. They got into their uniforms. They loved it. They had a blast. So, and then we did an email campaign, basically MD United We Rise. We released the video on the first day of school, the 31st on Monday. So, it's what are we doing to prepare them to learn and to build those connections and kind of get those kids excited about starting again. Ira, what are you guys doing down there?
Yeah, we did a bunch of videos as well. We did a video welcome back and and that sort of thing. And I think it is important to connect and we'll talk about student athlete programming a little bit later. But yeah, I think from a connection standpoint, we have to be able to, hopefully we've been in connection the whole time, but now that they're potentially coming back to campus, how do we reiterate it to them that, hey, this is a different world too. And that's the thing, that I've been talking with our student athletes about when I see them is like, hey, the world that you left in March is no longer exists right now. We're entering into a different world where everything is social distancing, masks, it's just a different environment. You're not shaking hands, you're not high-fiving, you're not, doing all the things you would normally do in the world of athletics. So that's tough, and that's something that, I think it's important to look at.
Well, and I think we have to lead by example, right? So we go out and we're seeing camps or whatever off-season workouts going on, and I always laugh. I call it the virtual high five, from a distance, the virtual high fives, and so I think wearing our masks around campus and showing them that we're doing the same thing, kind of that lead by example, will help. Brings us into
Yeah.
the programming, Ira. So the student athletes programming, take the lead on that.
Yeah. Real quick, Amanda, can we back about, I think, Rob, are you there? Is Rob Seymour on here? Maybe Rob's not on right now, but I know he's
Hey,
in.
Ira.
You
There you
there?
Yeah, I am. I was on a phone call, so I missed your question.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I know I don't want to catch you off guard there, but I know you guys are doing some things in Indiana, and you're kind of ahead of the curve and playing. Do you want to talk about that really, where you're at, and you're playing games, right?
Yeah, we are. We're in week 3 of high school football.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah,
So
talk about that experience a little bit.
We're going into this, I thought if we got to week 2, we'd be really good. And here we are in week 3. So it started off, we started off kind of rough a little bit. We had some teams that got, quarantined. We've worked very closely with our local health department, and in Indiana, that's pretty much that's what's the driving force is the local health departments for each county. They're all handling it a little bit different, and some are more strict than others. Some of the guidelines that came out in Indiana had some interpretation that was open-ended, and so it's like, for example, 250 was a visitor amount. So some places, some counties are saying that's counting the athletes, counting the player, all the players, coaches, everything. Other places are saying it's per set of bleachers, which is what we're kind of doing. And then some others are doing 25% or 1,000, whatever number is the least amount. And that's, again, spectator driven. But it really kind of puts you at about 15 to 17% capacity when you're looking at spectators. So I've worked extensively with Ticket Spicket because they've created channels. So we used it. We went totally digital, no cash on premises, not even in our concession stands. And we're setting our capacity limits per venue. So like, for example, in our Ox Gym, which is the smallest for freshman volleyball, it's 60 people can be in there. So we set it at, 30 tickets per team, 2 tickets per person. And so we control that venue there. We had to separate that out from our varsity and JV that are playing in the main gym, simply because we couldn't afford those parents to come over and take up the seats that were already, possibly sold to varsity and JV. So we just said, hey, when freshman's over, go ahead and go home. We do have spots in the varsity gym where we socially distance the teams that aren't playing. So that takes up some space. We have a big crosstown rival that we want to be at 250, the max. So we moved the freshman game to a different date. That way we didn't have to worry about, taking up that section to socially distance those 12 or 24 kids. Soccer's, when we have big games, we've thrown it on a Saturday night instead of Saturday morning. So we're not getting in the way of football practices or JV, sub-varsity level games. We've thrown it to Saturday night. We can do a little bit bigger venue, spaced out a little bit better. A lot of the ideas that we actually are using are ideas that we get from meetings like this. We run a state AD meeting in Indiana every Monday. We get about 280 people in there. And we've done that. I mean, it go all the way back to when we were, when you guys first started, March 23rd, I think was our first one. So we kept doing that, sharing good ideas, best practices from all across the country and within our state. So it's worked very well. I would say that it took about 2 weeks for the honeymoon period to wear off. We're just glad to be back playing. Now it's give me more. I want my kid to be recognized for this. I want this. I want this, which is a little bit disheartening. But we just gotta keep going with our plan. Our school right now, we have 2 high schools in the district. We're 3,700 kids, and they're about 3,600. And we're virtual only right now. So we wrote a proposal to come back into playing. So we had a reentry plan that we changed every week in the summer. We had to rewrite it and adapt it. And then we had a proposal plan for our health department to bring spectators in. And we thought while we're virtual, no kids in the school, so we go no kids in the stands. It's immediate family only. And that's getting us some kickback right now. The kid, they want to get in the stands. But we've kind of stuck to that, and we're not going to sell it to students yet. So again, Ticket Spicket allows us to do that because we can just use those channels that we create and only share it to certain people. So.
Well, I'm very jealous. Like I said before, you guys are actually playing. I'd be okay with parents yelling at me that their kid's not playing right now because it means they're playing. But no, I appreciate you sharing that. And it's great to hear at least you guys are week 3, which is further than you thought. So keep up the good work, Rob. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate all that you do. That's for sure.
Hey, Ira, I have one more too. Michael from San Diego. I kind of wanted to hear, I know San Diego is actually moving to the next phase. Michael, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Could you talk a little bit about, I know San Diego is off the watch list, correct?
We are off. Yes, we are off.
And then what is now, is it everybody obviously district by district? Do you have to file something with the health department to open? How does that work down there?
Yeah, it's pretty much conference by conference. They're working through to figure out how and when, but it's really the San Diego Unified School Districts that's going to make that decision. That's what's keeping us locked up right now. Private
Got it.
schools are definitely different. They're doing trainings and in their pods, and they're doing things differently. But ultimately, CIF said for us, San Diego section said for us that we can't start till December 14th. And now we're just waiting for San Diego Unified to lift a little bit for us, because all of our kids are virtual learning, unless you are going to a private school. Some of them are doing hybrids, and some of them are doing pods at school.
Got it. Okay. So at least you're moving in the right direction. Go ahead, Ira.
No, I wanted to bring in Anthony. I know my good buddy Anthony's down there in San Diego as well. And he can bring the independent school perspective. I always like to hear both perspectives,
Sure.
especially that independent school perspective. Go ahead, Anthony.
Right.
Hey, Ira, how you doing, brother?
Good.
Yeah, so as an independent school, yeah, we don't even start, and this is something weird for me. We're one of the few schools that never starts till after Labor Day anyway. So we had a lot of time to prepare for things. So we don't start till September 8th. We are coming back, as Michael Lynn said, more of a blended schedule. So we are a K through 12 school, 1,300 students on 2 campuses. Our upper school and middle school are together on 1 campus, and that's about 880 students. Our blended schedule is going to be a model of 3 days on, 2 days off, where our entire middle school will have the whole campus for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, for example. And then our upper school, our high school, will have the campus on Tuesday, Thursday, and then they'll flip. And those days that they're not on campus, they are doing online stuff. So that's how school's going to work. And we have been active in getting our classrooms set up, getting the cohorts in line, and how, some of the biggest challenges, believe it or not, is like drop off and pickup, and getting ready for that activity. We've hired additional 30 people to help us sort of monitor all of that. In terms of athletics, we have, been able to sort of plan for what we're going to do. And we are looking forward to getting our program started on probably September 14th, with all of our athletes being led by our strength and conditioning coach and our athletic trainer and a few coaches. And we'll do just our training, but we're not doing any sports specific practices anytime soon until things get a little bit better. So we're hopefully aiming we're going to treat October, November like it was June and July, and start using that like our summer plans and what we'll do at that point. But, we've been talking to our kids, and I think the most important part for me, at least personally, is that I've been wanting to talk to our kids and deal with some of the social emotional learning that needs to happen. I want to check in with our kids and make sure they're doing all right. They're seeing what's happening in our country right now. So we have to have some conversations around how to have tough conversations with our kids and our coaches. Our kids are impacted by what's going on. It's not going to be enough just to play games, right? And that's going to heal everything. They're still carrying some of that stuff. I thought it was interesting, watching Hard Knocks last night, and how they were showing how the Rams and Chargers were dealing with some of that stuff. Those are professional athletes, and they were taking time out to have those discussions. So I would imagine that for us, high schools, we should be touching base with our coaches and kids and talking about how we're going to have those tough conversations around that. We just had a little bit of a protest in San Diego last week that got a little crazy. So I think that's going to be an important part of us easing back into this, is having those conversations before we ramp up in December.
There it is. That's all good stuff, Anthony. And that last piece was very important, because what's going on in this country is it's tough for everybody. And can you imagine dealing with that as a 14, 15, 16-year-old kid? So I appreciate those words.
Well, Ira, I think too, based on what he said, it's that conversation, that is uncomfortable, you have to be okay having. And I have to tell you, for anybody that hasn't seen it, uncomfortable conversations with a Black man is one of the best things I've seen. And it really kind of brings to light some of the things and how to have some of those conversations. And it's been really great. I know I have a diversity and inclusion committee that I have formed with a couple coaches on campus and teachers. We're going to bring students in because we know they need to have a voice and they need to feel heard. And that's one of the things that we shared with the group for everybody to kind of read and watch a little bit. So if you haven't seen that, it's pretty impressive stuff. And don't forget, because we're still dealing with it every day. And just because it's not main news every day, which it is on most networks, doesn't mean we can forget it, because the kids are going to come back and they're going to have questions, and not everybody's going to say the right thing, and it's okay, but ask questions, and I think that's the biggest thing is that everybody can't say, well, I already know what I need to know, because I can tell you right now that I don't. And I've asked Ira, what do you think and how do you feel? Because I can't be him. I can't say how he feels. I can't say how our kids feel, right? Because I'm white and I'm not Black and I'm not dealing with that. And it's a different type of thing. But I can tell you this is I can stand beside him and I can say, I have your back and I will support you 100%. And that for me, it is important to have some of those tough conversations. So, all right. So I want to hit on one more. Alexia from Washington. I wanted to check in and see how Washington's doing. If you could touch on that, Alexia, a little bit.
Yeah, sure. It kind of depends on where you are in the state of Washington and the county that you're in. So some
looks like you're at the beach. Are you in the ocean?
No, that's a new our hockey logo.
Awesome. I love it.
Born and raised in the Midwest, we breathe and die hockey. So we're really excited it's coming here. So Western Washington, we're pretty much almost all on hold. There are a couple school districts that are doing some off-season non-skill specific training and conditioning. But most schools are stuck in phase 2. So we're all 100% online until at least November. Our sports are divided into 4 seasons. So everything from season 1, so football, volleyball, cross country, some tennis has been pushed to the spring. And season 2 will start hopefully December 28th with football, basketball, and wrestling. However, our guidelines, wrestling can't even practice until we have less than 25 cases per 100,000. And we are in phase 4, and currently no one in the state is phase 4. And they're not expecting that probably until late spring at the earliest. So like many of you, we're trying to be creative and encourage our coaches to connect with their athletes social and emotionally via Zoom, and maybe do some Microsoft Teams meetings. I know our district just adopted the Character Strong curriculum for our SEL curriculum. So I'm hoping we can get that out to our coaches and have them utilize it as well. So it's not just in their academic curriculum, but the coaches are starting to use some of that same language and build that same culture. So we're doing it district-wide and not just in 1 or 2 buildings. I'm trying to think. That's kind of where we are right now. We have a lot of disappointed athletes, a lot of disappointed coaches, and the parents are starting to fight back, and there are petitions circulating the state to bring back athletics.
Right. I think part of that, and Ira, and you could, is the mental health piece, right? I mean, I know I have an 11 and 14-year-old who are circling, like, and my older son started at least his water polo, but they're like, so I get it. From a parent perspective, it's kind of like, let's go, but then we also want to make sure we do it safely. So, and I think somebody made a good point. Private schools, we have a little more flexibility than public. They're kind of going on the mercy of what they're told they can do, right? So, Ira, I have a quick question for the people that have started football, Rob and the guy from Utah. How would you about concessions? So, do you have concessions? Do you is it cashless only? How does that work with concessions? If one of you could skirt back on and answer that.
Rob, you want to go?
Yep, I'll go ahead. Sure. And then you can add too. We did go cashless. We don't run our concessions. Our PTO runs them, but we work closely with them. They work actually closer with us on the concessions than they probably do anybody else in the PTO. But they did. They went completely cashless there. We created lines and painted footprints, to keep the social distancing leading up to the lines, and then right at the gate, basically everywhere almost in our school, our building and grounds individuals built some plexiglass shields that have a little area underneath them where more like food and drinks could go through. They're pretty much we thought we were going to be very restricted at the beginning, meaning like prepackaged things only. But now what they pretty much has defined is that like wrapping up a hot dog and putting popcorn with a lid on it type stuff. They allowed us to do all that. So those are the health departments that are kind of providing the guidance. To be honest with you, I think with concessions, I think they're overworked on contact tracing and doing everything else that they probably are just kind of letting concessions go to however they want to go.
For sure.
We're very fortunate at our school because our concessions manager is also one of our cafeteria managers in the district. So she's got the whole mindset of food safety and everything else. But I know there's some other concessions at local, travel ball leagues that are kind of like COVID concessions probably, and you wouldn't want to eat from, but that's kind of where we're at. So they've ran smooth. We considered shutting them down at halftime just to prevent the social distancing. But we really, because we're on our home side, we have 500. And what we did is we went 250. Every set of bleachers is 250. And that meant they had to have their own entry, their own bathroom, and their own concession. So, you only have 250 people trying to go to a concession stand. So we've not overtaxed those individuals.
Better than thousands, huh? Jamie, how about you guys? What have you guys done?
So we've actually elected not to do concessions at this time. However, if we were open, which we can be, we would be very similar to what Rob described. The problem is our concession stand is on our home side and it's kind of on a little bit of a hill. So to be able to ask people to social distance when they're in line it just wouldn't be practical in our situation. And so we just elected not to do them currently. But when we've played away games, people have had them open, but it's pretty much what Rob described. And when we do finally reopen them, when we make that decision, it will be cashless as much as possible. I will throw this out there as we're talking about this for people that are getting ready. We did football is great because it almost naturally isolates your communities on one side of the field and the other. We brought in extra bathrooms for the visiting side so they don't have to come across to ours. They can just stay on their side. They never have to cross over. And essentially communities don't need to contaminate each other if that was a possibility. The other challenge I think everybody's going to have is how you're handling hydration. And Rob may be in the same situation there, but you can't just, there's very specific rules now on who can touch the water, what you can use for water and how it's dispensed and who's dispensing it. That's one of our biggest challenges, especially when visiting teams come. It's like, well, who's the water boy or who's the water person that is designated that can actually touch and control the water. So it's interesting. That's for sure.
One thing I'll add about hydration on that, our trainer, he's pretty slick. We have a water cow that's battery operated. He actually was able to take the water line to one of the hand spigots. He ran it up to a sink. He created a sink faucet with a motion sensor dispenser. So basically, they run their hands underneath it, and the water comes on, and they can fill their water bottle. So it's completely touchless. And then they and then they take the bottle away, and the water goes off. So
all right, you got to take a picture of that, Rob. Take a picture.
Yeah.
You got to send it to me.
It's pretty slick. It's very slick.
I love that. That's
Plus
fantastic.
like $100, he said, to do it. But yeah, the hydration piece is a big thing. And I don't know if you get, because I've kind of had to do some other stuff here, but once you get into, there's been some places that like with social distancing, their bleachers, it's been all over the the page on this one. Most people have agreed you have to skip a row. And then you checkerboard, try to checkerboard. I will say that some people have just said, you know what, we're going to skip a row and kind of let it go and let people figure out where they go. And that doesn't work. We went through our stands and put down lines of tape and said, basically set on the tape. Other people put down stickers, set on the stickers. You'll be fooling yourself if you think that we're just going to leave this bench open and they'll properly socially distance. So that's a challenge that we have to, we had to try to figure out. So.
All right, great. Thank you guys for sharing. I appreciate that. And Ira, you want to start off with the student athletes programming?
Yeah, and I won't be long on this. I just feel like, for our athletic program, I've always, whether it's here or other programs I've been at, I've always tried to give our student athletes and families other than just playing games. So I feel like if we're just playing games, then our athletic department, to me, is incomplete. So we do, several things, career things that we do with our student athletes, and, just different programming throughout the year. So hopefully you can find time, even in the year of COVID, whether it's social justice stuff, whether it's career programming, whether it's other things to do programming for student athletes. One unique thing that we're doing tonight, and I'll post a link in the chat here, and it's going to be on YouTube. So if anybody want to watch, they can feel free. We're doing a student athlete recruiting summit. We all get these questions about recruiting and, how can I get on the radar and that sort of thing and all of that. And that's great. And so what we try to do is once a semester address that. And when we try to do it in a unique way, like tonight, we're going to have a panel of college coaches who are actually going to be in this session, being able to really talk about it. So it's not me saying, hey, I'll mention some things, but you'll hear right from college coaches what they're looking for. So that'll be a unique thing for our student athletes and families to be able to hear from college coaches tonight. So you guys, I'll put this link in the chat. So if you want to check it out and do something like that at your school, I think I think it's good, because that recruiting piece is always something we get a lot of questions about, and sometimes it's great for families and student athletes to hear from the coaches themselves versus us just saying, hey, now you need to be bigger, you need to work on this, or you need to work on that. So student athlete recruiting summit tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Feel free to join on YouTube. You can check it out.
So for us, our time.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, awesome. All right, so next up, recruiting processes during COVID. So I know early on, Ira, we had Brian Kelly on the show who kind of talked a little bit about what athletes could do during this time to help themselves get recruited. They talked about a website, they talked about videos, they talked about an email, which we put on our website. What new info do you have for us for that?
Yeah, I think that's similar. Ironically, tonight in our recruiting summit, we're going to have somebody on from the NCAA as well, and they'll be talking about the whole, recruiting process during COVID. But I think the biggest thing, during COVID is coaches can't come out. So we have football student athletes who have totally changed their bodies since the last time spring football got canceled. So coaches couldn't come, college coaches couldn't come then. So the last time they seen them play was in last fall. So they look totally different. So my thing would be to try to get out videos of yourself and get it out there and send it to coaches of what you look like now. What's your size now? What's your weight now? Because in all sports, measurables matter. So I would really try to, get that information. Not only they know you can play, but physically, what do you look like versus what do you look like last fall?
Well, and I think too, including in that letter, like that introduction email that you're sending, you can always add a video of yourself, right? Add a video of yourself talking and introducing yourself so they know how you talk and how you look, and just as much as you can do to get them to see you without coming out on your campuses to see you.
Exactly, because who knows when that's going to be.
Yep. And then the last is the new NCAA rules, how to relate to high school seniors.
Yeah, and again, we'll talk about this tonight in the summer, but the one thing about that is that everyone has another year. I had one of my goddaughter plays volleyball at Northwestern, and I had her talking to our student athletes, our volleyball student athletes the other day, and she was talking about, oh yeah, I get a 6th year or whatever, So everyone's excited about that extra year that the NCAA just gave the fall student athletes this year. They gave it to the spring last year, and so how is that going to affect you? If you're looking at school as a senior, you may say, hey, you know what? I was going to play softball third base, and I'm pretty good, but actually that third baseman is going to be back for not only this year, but another year. They were, you know what I mean? So that may affect your decision. So you need to see what's happening with the NCAA COVID rules, as it affects the recruiting process.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's going to raise a lot of questions for the NCAA. Like, what does that mean with scholarships? Does that mean that, there's going to be a lot of questions on how that works financially with them by adding that next year. Ira, anything else from you for today?
No, I think somebody just asked what time the summit is. It's 7 p.m. tonight, Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. I put the YouTube link in the chat. And so yeah, and then nothing else for me. I just think let's keep collaborating. Let's keep working together. We're stronger together, and we're helping each other, around the country, with this call. I know, Shane, I will ask you, since you're on, I will ask you what happened. Did Michigan decided they're going to play volleyball and all that? Has that came down yet?
That's a great question. Our governor's speaking today at 2:30, so we'll see if she's going to open up gyms, pools, and ice arenas. The funny thing that's going on here, which is scary, is they're actually thinking of bringing football back for the fall. After they've already told us that's going to move to spring 1. So we're all kind of just sitting back and waiting. There's kind of a little bit of a battle between the MHSA and the governor's office right now. So we're just waiting and hanging tight. Word on the street is they'll open all these things up after Labor Day.
Yeah, you guys sound like in Michigan, sounds like the Big Ten. You go back and forth, back and forth. Next, you'll be getting a call. Donald Trump will be calling you.
Absolutely.
And get back playing. So, all right. Well, I don't want to go into politics.
Good. Yeah, don't do that. Hey, I wanted to say too, you stole my Stronger Together line, by the way. That I always say that. Okay.
Oh, do you?
So
Okay.
I do. It's okay.
I take that back.
It's totally fine. Hey, I just wanted to say, I thank everybody for collaborating. I know that now schools are starting and times are getting a little harder to make sure you have this time. But I really appreciate all of you that spoke today. It's so interesting for me and everyone else to hear what they're doing in different states. And I'm so jealous of Jamie and Rob that you guys are starting football. Of course, you're probably going, yeah, not so jealous, but I really am. So if I fly to one of your states to see a football game, it's because I'm really missing it. I'm just kidding. My school would kill me. So, but hey, thank you guys all for everything. And we'll see you in a few weeks. Let us know if there's any important topics you want us to add to the agendas as well. And then any final thoughts from you, Ira?
Bring modern day to Miami, Florida.
Hey, I'm ready. You don't want us to come there, Ira.
We're waiting on you. Take care, everybody.
All right, bye, everybody.